Daniel was a 22-year-old cashier working at a small-town grocery store. His life was simple: work long shifts, greet customers with a polite smile, and save money for college. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, but he had big dreams. Every day was the same: scanning groceries, handling payments, and making sure the shelves stayed stocked. One afternoon, an elderly woman walked up to his register. Her name was Margaret. She was dressed in simple but clean clothes, and her basket held only basic groceries: bread, milk, some vegetables, and a few cans of soup. Daniel greeted her warmly, just like he did with every customer. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How's your day going?" he asked with a friendly smile. "Oh, just fine, dear. Thank you for asking," Margaret replied kindly. As Daniel scanned the items, Margaret reached into her purse to retrieve her wallet. But as she searched, her hands started trembling. Her expression changed from warm to worried. She dug through her bag, but after a few moments, she sighed and looked up at Daniel. "Oh, dear, I must have left my wallet at home," she whispered, her face turning red with embarrassment. The line behind her started growing, and some customers began sighing impatiently. The store manager, standing nearby, gave Daniel a look as if to say, "Hurry up and resolve this." Margaret's eyes filled with worry as she hesitated. "I can put some things back," she said softly. "I don't want to cause any trouble." Daniel looked at her, noticing the sadness in her eyes. In that moment, he made a decision. Without a second thought, he reached into his own pocket, pulled out his wallet, and swiped his card. Margaret's eyes widened. "Young man, you don't have to do that," she protested. Daniel smiled and shrugged. "It's okay, ma'am. It's on me. Just promise me you'll have a great day." Margaret's lips quivered as tears welled up in her eyes. She gently squeezed Daniel's hand. "You're a blessing," she whispered. She gathered her groceries and slowly walked out of the store. Daniel thought that was the end of it. He had no idea that his small act of kindness would change his life forever. A week had passed since Daniel had helped the elderly woman. He had almost forgotten about it. His life continued as usual: long shifts at the grocery store, saving every penny for college. But everything changed one morning when a sleek, black luxury car pulled into the grocery store parking lot. The doors opened, and out stepped a well-dressed man in a suit, followed by none other than Margaret. Daniel, who was at the register, froze in shock. Margaret looked different, more confident, almost regal. The store manager noticed them and rushed over, clearly surprised. "Mrs. Sinclair." "What a surprise," he exclaimed. Daniel's eyes widened. "Mrs. Sinclair?" He watched in confusion as Margaret walked straight toward him with a warm smile. "Daniel," she said kindly, "I've been looking for you." Daniel swallowed hard. "Me?" She nodded and reached into her purse, pulling out a neatly folded document. "I need to tell you something," she said, taking a deep breath. "You didn't know this, but I'm not just an old woman struggling to buy groceries. My name is Margaret Sinclair, and I own this grocery chain." The store fell silent. Even the manager looked stunned. Daniel's mouth went dry. What?" he stammered. Margaret chuckled softly. "I've spent my life building this business from the ground up. But lately, I've been wondering if the people working here still have the kindness that started it all. So I decided to see for myself." Daniel's hands shook slightly. "You mean you were testing us?" Margaret smiled. "In a way. But you did something no one else did. You saw a person in need, and instead of looking the other way, you acted with kindness. That's rare these days." She handed him the document. "That's why," she continued, "I'd like to offer you a full scholarship to college. Your generosity changed my day, so now I want to change your life." Daniel stared at the document in disbelief. A full scholarship? The room erupted into gasps. Customers and co-workers stood frozen in shock. The store manager, who had pressured Daniel to hurry the transaction a week ago, looked like he had seen a ghost. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "A scholarship?" he whispered. Margaret nodded, her eyes twinkling. "Consider it an investment in someone who truly deserved it." Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes. He had spent years working long hours, struggling to save for college. He had dreamed of getting an education, but had no idea how he would afford it. And now, because of a single act of kindness, His future had changed in an instant. The store erupted into applause. Customers clapped, co-workers patted his back, and even the store manager, who had doubted him, smiled with admiration. Daniel wiped his eyes and looked at Margaret. "I don't know how to thank you." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Just promise me that when you have a chance, you'll pay it forward." Daniel nodded firmly. "I will." That day, he walked out of the grocery store with more than just his name tag and apron. He walked out with a future. News of Daniel's story spread across the small town like wildfire. Local newspapers covered it, social media buzzed with praise, and people all over were inspired by his kindness. Customers started treating grocery store employees with more respect, and even the store manager took a different approach toward his staff. But the biggest change came from Daniel himself. With the scholarship, he enrolled in college and pursued a degree in business management. He worked hard, never forgetting the moment that had changed his life. And true to his promise, he dedicated himself to giving back. Years later, after graduating, Daniel opened a foundation that helped low-income students pay for college. He mentored young employees, teaching them the importance of kindness in business. One evening, an elderly man walked into his office, holding an envelope. He was a janitor at a local high school, struggling to put his granddaughter through college. Daniel smiled warmly and handed the man a letter. "Here's a full scholarship for your granddaughter," he said. "No strings attached. Just promise me one thing. Help someone else when you get the chance." The old man's eyes filled with tears. "Your blessing," he whispered, echoing Margaret's words from years ago. And with that, the cycle of kindness continued. Because a single act of generosity can change lives in ways no one ever expects.